We do want to talk about the Trey Zwicker autopsy report in the Josh Young case. We just got it, and there are some chilling details in this report. It talks about both blunt force and sharp force in it. And Joseph, I mean, you're a medical examiner. This is your area of expertise. So based on what you've read, what stands out to you specifically?
Well, what stands out to me specifically is that there's been a lot of talk about baseball bats and this sort of thing. Yeah. But in the autopsy report, the doctor does make a specific delineation between sharp force and blunt force. And let's take a look at that very quickly on the telestrator. If we can take a look right here in this area in the back of the head, this is what's referred to as the occipital area. She talks about a sharp force area right here of injury. And not only does she say sharp force, she refers to this as a chopping injury. Oh. And this required a tremendous amount of force. Underlying here is a large area of fracture. My thought is that this was not obviously generated by a baseball bat. More than likely, this will have had to have been generated by something you could get leverage with as large as like maybe a machete.
So if there were possibly two weapons, does that immediately tell you there may have been more than one person, or can you get a timeline of those injuries to know that one person could have used two different weapons?
Well, what we do know is that based upon the amount of hemorrhage that he had, is that he was alive during all of this. And I'll go to one more point that's really quite striking. If we could bring up the other image. We have this area specifically right here in the back. This is a large contused area, what we refer to as contused, what we would know as bruising. This is consistent with having been struck with a baseball bat. But if
so then there would be two weapons, right?
There could very well have been two weapons.
So do you think that means that two people were involved?
It's quite possible. It's not outside the realm of possibility. However, the injury on the head is going to require a tremendous amount of force. He's also got an insult involving his face right here, where he has had a number of his teeth fractured and cracked. And this is an acute event. He's got hemorrhage inside of his mouth where his teeth lacerated his mouth. In addition to this, he has also got what we believe to be aspirate in his mouth. Now, what this means is that his face was either driven down into the mud, or, this is what I believe, the injury to the back of his head debilitated him to the point where he was incapable of moving, and he essentially died as a result of positional asphyxia in the mud.
And people may be asking, why is that important? It really goes to the point that you were saying that you think there's possibility there could have been two weapons, therefore two people. And I want to ask you this, because on Friday, the defense brought up Dr. George Nichols, and he said, no, this is one person, and he said it was done by a single person standing in the exact same foot place. So if it were two, exactly. So if it were two people, there would have been two different positions. And you know, you go through these autopsy reports, other than it being extremely disturbing to a layperson, it's really confusing. So the importance here is whether or not there was one or two people. If it's two, then it involves both of them.
I think an important point here is that we do have the autopsy report, but we're greatly lacking relative to the scene report. There's no information that's coming in from the scene other than what the ME is reporting to us based upon what they were told. So as far as footprints and all this sort of thing, there's nothing. I have absolutely nothing to work with relative to this. I can say that the possibility exists that there were two people, and there were certainly two weapons. This was not just a baseball bat. There was something that was an edge that did this.
So do you think a metal pipe could have done one of these? Because that was the implication yesterday. It was that a metal pipe, correct?
Right, a metal pipe could have generated the injuries on the back. However, they cannot generate these sharp force injuries. This young man had his skull fractured by something that had a sharp edge on it, and it didn't just fracture the back of his head, it fractured internally inside of his head. So it was a very, very brutal event, very